Hello and welcome back to another video. Today here again on Forza Horizon 5 to test out this week's Car Pass car. However, before we get started with that, let's have a quick look through the new festival playlist, the New Year, Happy New Year festival playlist that's landed, which of course means, well, you can see from the image, Guanajuato has changed again, but we have several new cars that I'm going to be testing over the coming weeks, so if you do want to see them, make sure you are subscribed. Because, yeah, you can see here already we've got the Zenvo on the way. Those are the series rewards, so these are a few weeks away. But this week we have two cars available. 488, not particularly interesting. Celica, which is new. Well, back from an old motorsport game, effectively. So I think that is our new car this week. We've also got the Donkervort coming back next week and the Toyota, so they're both returning, which is nice to know. I don't think there's anything new, as far as I know, in autumn. Winter, Carrera's nice, but we already have one, and the other Arctic truck. I don't think there's anything new here either. As far as I know, it's all returning stuff. I think the Celica's the only one that wasn't in Horizon 4, if you like. So a lot of these are in Horizon 4, so I probably won't be testing them. But yeah, today's, focus is none of these. It's actually the Car Pass car. So let's go and have a look at that. So here is this week's Car Pass car, the Jaguar XJ13. It's probably the one I've been most looking forward to out of, anything that they've revealed as part of the Car Pass so far. Although I am looking forward to next week's Jag as well, quite a lot. But yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for a while. 502 horsepower, 1,160 kilos, 1966 Jaguar XJ13. So I did actually have to restart my game again to remind Forza that this car is supposed to be unlocked. But anyway, let's go and pick it up. Hopefully, nobody's made any horrific liveries for it. It seems nobody's made anything, which is very good, because green is the only colour this should be allowed in. Well, there's only one of them, and it is green, so yes, if you paint it any other colour, just don't, basically. So yes, here it is, the Jaguar XJ13. I wasn't expecting that to open quite so far over. I mean, I guess technically it does. But yeah, here it is, the 1966 Jaguar XJ13, one of only one, so the rarest car we've had in the Car Pass so far. One of the rarest and most valuable cars, in the world, so one of the rarest and most valuable in this game. So valuable, in fact, that, nobody knows quite what it's worth, but an offer was put in for 7 million in the 90s and declined, which may not sound much by today's standards, but at the time that was 3 times what 250 GTOs would be going for. So gives you some idea how valuable and rare it is. I mean, there is only one, so it makes sense that the value is that high. The reason it's that high is because effectively this would have been the successor to the D-Type. It would have raced at Le Mans alongside GT40s and 330p4s, had it raced. But basically, I think development took longer than it was supposed to, the rules were all changing, and basically it wasn't going to be competitive. So, hence why there's only one kind of prototype racing car of this, because they kind of ditched development because it wasn't going to compete with the likes of the GT40, which was coming in and winning everything, and later, of course, the Porsche 917. Now this one, the only one in existence, did actually have a huge accident in a testing kind of, top speed test, I think. It had been in storage for a while and the tyre blew out, basically. So it had to be completely rebuilt, I think, in the 70s. It was shown rebuilt at Silverstone in 73. And yeah, it still runs today. I think it's been restored a couple of times since, but it does still run. And that 5-litre V12, I think we should take it for a quick drive and listen to that. Sounds quite good. Shame there's a ghost of a Jeep there. And you can actually see the V12 in there. Body by... Oh, that's cool. And I like how all the things were labelled with a, like, label maker thing in old racing cars. It's quite basic. I mean, it's not as beautiful as the interior of the GT40, but I would say, from the outside, it's better looking than that or the Ferraris that raced at the time. I don't think it's quite as good looking as an E-Type, but it's the same kind of look. But anyway, I think we should head down into Guanajuato with this, because with the update, as I pointed out earlier, there have been some changes. It doesn't turn in very well. I mean, it is from the 1960s, but it kind of doesn't bite and turn in, then it slides a bit wide, but yes, kind of to be expected. Now, I think for the full effect here, we're going to have to come back at night, when all the lanterns are lit up. Oh look, we got an accolade for driving into a city. Yeah, so I think... Oh, there we go. I was trying to head for sort of more towards the centre, but there are some here. I was going to say I'm going to have to come back at night to be able to see these, but... No, they are here. So, I think now what we should do is go and see how it compares to the previous Car Pass cars. Now, I know until recently I was running these around my custom circuit here in the city, but after the crashes and things with the SVJ and they're not going as fast as it should, I decided to relocate to the Mexico Festival circuit, because it's sort of more open, there's less chance of hitting a wall and ruining the entire run, and I'm going to be doing 5 laps in Rivals to make it sort of more of a fair test, give every car more opportunities to go well, as fast as its potential, basically. So I have lapped all of the previous cars around there. The SVJ, admittedly, is now top of the board, so I take back what I said about it being slower than an SV. I still prefer the SV, but yeah, I need to just make that clear before we get started running a few laps around there. So I've taken all the previous cars round, and each week I'm going to be taking, well, cars that I think are relevant to the Car Pass car round quickly before. So all of the Aventadors have run round as a comparison to the SVJ, SVJ being faster than all of them. All of the Hurricanes ran around before the Evo. So for this, I was going to run, well, a couple of racing cars from that era. Now, the GT40 Mark II I was going to run, but I can't afford one. I do have a 330 P4, which I want from a wheel spin, so that has been around. But anyway, let's head over there and start up our 5 laps of Rivals. So I did quickly look at the PI and stuff of the Ferrari. This is 1 PI higher at 780, not 779, or it might have been the other way around, but there's 1 PI difference basically. This has 52 more horsepower but weighs slightly more, so it'll be interesting to see whether it's faster. At the time, Jaguar thought it wouldn't be. So, away we go. 5 laps in the stock XJ13. We will modify it afterwards and see how it compares to a few modified cars that I've taken around the circuit. But anyway, let me be quiet and concentrate for 5 laps so that we get a sort of informative lap time out of this, because all the others I've taken around off camera. Obviously this first lap is an out lap, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, 5 laps just so it gives me time to adjust to the car and how it handles around this circuit. This does kind of understeer and slide out wide a bit. It sort of understeers on the way in, slides a bit as you get the power down on the way out, but I have to say the Ferrari was, well, it handles in a similar fashion, so this will be quite interesting, I think. And we're using very low gears. We appear to be mostly in and out of second and third. Right, anyway, on to the first flying lap. Oh, these gears are horrible. I shifted up too early there. I was surprised I even needed first. You know, we flagged it, but 108 for our first flying lap. Faster, but still flagged. so that was the lap that was... First lap that was anything near its potential. 107.6 unflagged. One more lap to go. No, I think that's it. I will finish this lap anyway. Yeah, so it's slower and flagged, so 107.6 is the time that stands. Let's see... Well, let's take a look at how that compares to the previous cars and, well, in particular, the most interesting one, probably, the Ferrari. So, rather interestingly, a 107.668 puts it into 11th place, just behind the Ferrari 330 P4. And, yeah, the Jag is 1 PI lower at 779. I knew there was 1 PI difference in them. But yeah, it's just over a tenth slower than the Ferrari, which did a 107.534, which put it into 10th place, the fastest A-class stock vehicle so far. All the other stuff much more modern and S1, so we don't worry about that. But yeah, it kind of makes sense. It's just that little bit slower than the Ferrari, which is why Jaguar didn't race it at the time. It was becoming, well, not competitive, basically. And we know the Ferrari was beaten by the Ford in reality, so the Ferrari was the slower of the competitors that Jaguar were worried about. But yeah, it's done well to get that close, I think. I mean, there is only 1 PI in it, so you'd expect it to get fairly close. But yeah, given they didn't enter it because they thought it would be slower than the other cars. These are from the same year, by the way, the Ferrari and the Jag, both 66, which is why I didn't lap the Mark 1 GT40 I had, because it was older. I'd have needed the Mark 2 from 66 to make it a fair comparison between the three. So once I do have one of those, I will lap it round here and let you know how it gets on in comparison to those two. I think in past Forza games it's been slower than the Ferrari for some reason. But anyway, yeah, that's where the Jag sits, ahead of the Nissan Gold Leader, which is high A-class but slower than both of these, and ahead of the Supra, which is the only exception to the 5-lap rule, because that was lapped around here, well, a lot of times for DRS practice. It had 9 laps when I did the actual test to see where it sat on this leaderboard. But anyway, not a bad showing from the XJ13. Let's return to the festival and, well, see what upgrades are available. Right, let's see what upgrades are available. So we've got engine swaps. You can put in a racing V12 if you want to ruin it. All-wheel drive swap. And twin turbos. Let's have a quick look at the aero. And then we'll put an actual build on this thing. It looks hideous. I don't really want to use it. So I think what I'm going to do for this car and going forwards is, as this is more than halfway into A-Class, I'm going to build it to S1. So I think my rule's going to be, if it's below, we'll use A-Class as an example, if it was below 750, I would build it to the top of A, but because it's over, I'm going to build it to the top of S1. And to keep things as fair as possible, I think what I'll do is leave the drivetrains the same, so as this is rear-wheel drive, it will remain rear-wheel drive. I'll try to keep the engines standard, I think. I think that's kind of more interesting as a comparison. Some of the cars on the leaderboard are tuned previously, just as a benchmark time. But I think starting with this, I'll use that new system where I build it to top of the class it's in, or top of the following class if it's more than halfway through, if that makes sense. And then, yeah, we'll see how it compares to some of the other stuff. But anyway, I'm going to quickly throw on some parts to bring it to the top of S1, and then we'll lap it around the circuit. So I am going to have to put in an engine. It's not going to make it otherwise, which is slightly disappointing, but it's got to be done. So there we go, 983 horsepower, which might be a bit of a death trap, because it's rear-wheel drive still. It has got semi-slicks and, well, some tyre width and stuff, but yeah, a lot of horsepower, a little bit lighter, not by much. I did end up putting the aero on in the hope that that helped. But yeah, that could be quite interesting. let's go and see what it actually does. Right, so here we go. 5 laps again, same rules as before. S1 tuned XJ13, still rear-wheel drive as my kind of new rules I'm giving myself to build these. Let's see how it does. Previously, 2 vehicles have gone round in S1. An RX-7 with wide-body quad rotor and full slick tyres did a 59.9, and at the moment, fastest S1 car I've taken round here is a Lamborghini Urus at a 59.4, which of course has the all-wheel drive advantage, and the Mazda with a wide body had some super fat tyres, full slicks, so had quite a lot of grip, but both 59s. Similar speed to the stock SVJ, actually, both of those. So anyway, let's see what it can do. Not necessarily expecting it to beat those. Yes, it's sliding out a bit, but it's actually a lot less of a handful than I thought it would be. With that much power and rear-wheel drive, I somehow got that. That's not bad, 1 minute dead. Especially with a couple of mistakes. Nah, wall. Oh no. Okay, that wasn't very good. Slightly faster, but flagged. Oh no, I messed it up on the final corner there. That is still the fastest lap, but it could have been a sub 1 minute. So, with a final time, or fastest time, of 1 minute .427, yes, it could easily have got into the 59s, so it could potentially have beaten the Mazda, which didn't have a mistake on its fastest lap. But yeah, I'm still pretty impressed that it got that close with a quick tune that I've thrown on like that. The RX-7 and the Urus I took a bit more time with, because I actually used those in online a bit. Not the fastest cars in the world. I don't generally build things for, well, just because they're good. I build them because I want to use that car for whatever reason. Yes, they're quite random choices. But for a car that old, it's done pretty well. I know in Forza, older cars are sometimes better because they're that much lighter. But I don't think that's too far off. Like I say, it should have done a 59 if I didn't have that mistake. But yeah, not bad at all, and did better than I expected as a stock vehicle as well. So that was probably all there is to test with the XJ13. I am also very much looking forward to the XJ220 S TWR, which I'm expecting to break some of these records, actually. Maybe not the stock vehicles, but I'm thinking that's going to be pretty good tuned up. But anyway, yeah, very much looking forward to that, and I'll be testing that out same time next week, so watch out for that one. For now, though, that probably is going to do it for a first look at the Jaguar XJ13. It performed better than I expected stock, was quite nice to drive. It sort of doesn't have the turn-in and slides out wide a little bit more than you'd get from a modern car, say. But yeah, even with a crazy 1,000 horsepower tune on it, it wasn't far off my other S1 class cars I've built. I know that's not saying much, because I'm not necessarily the best at building, but yeah, I'm pretty impressed with that. I'm not necessarily the best at lapping them either, but all of the previous cars have had the same 5 laps of the same driver, so I think all in all it's a fair test, and yeah, it being slightly behind the Ferrari did make sense, which of course is why Jaguar didn't race it back in the day, but yeah, overall very much enjoyed it. I was really looking forward to this one, and yeah, it was pretty good in the end, so All in all, I'm quite pleased with it, and I'm very much looking forward to the XJ220 TWR next week. But for now, that is going to be all. So if you have enjoyed the video and you aren't already subscribed, please consider doing so. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with the next video very soon.